pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're also going to pause for a moment of silence to show our appreciation for our men and women in uniform. Thank you. I'll call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum. We're short a couple of selectmen due to family matters, which took them out of town today. Any selectman that has a conflict of interest with any agenda item, please speak up now or as the agenda item presents itself during the meeting. Joe, adjustments to the agenda. We do have, where do we want to add this health officer letter?
It may be appropriate to start with that if you wanted to.
Okay.
I can read it real quickly. It's a letter from our local health officer. If you'd like it to.
That'd be great. Thank you, Joe.
Franklin County is currently considered substantial orange based on this chart for the number of active cases of positive test results in the past 7 days. With the Delta variant, the CDC has recommended, and she emphasizes recommended, that you wear a mask inside public places if you are in an area of substantial or high transmission, regardless of vaccination status. That's really what you want to put across. And then the chart above has orange as 50 to 99 people per 100,000. So she shared that with us.
Yeah, thank you. She did note that there wasn't any way to break down the cases, by town, but it's an important resource. And thank you. This will be, if the board is okay with this being posted on our Facebook page and our website.
Chairman,
Yeah.
okay.
Pardon?
Two-fisted drinker tonight, you okay?
I need coffee tonight.
Okay, just want to make sure you.
Always have water.
You prepare ourselves. We have a paramedic. We can keep.
No, just been a long day. Thank you for your caring nature, Steve. All right, so under adjustments for the agenda, we first have Northstar Presentation, and we have Director Mike Senecal here with us. So Mike, thank you for being here and giving you the floor.
It's okay if I pull my mask down and talk so I can also that.
I can-
Well, thank you for having me up. I hope I can answer any questions. So I just want to talk overall, Northstar is a regional ambulance for most Franklin County, part of Androscoggin, and a little bit of Kennebec County. So we have the base here at Rangeley is one of our base. We have 2 ambulances here. We staff 1 truck 24 hours a day. It's kind of a unique staffing pattern up here because we have 1 paramedic on 24 hours a day. And then during the day, we have a paid person here at the EMT level or advanced EMT level. And then at night, that person goes on call because the call volumes just drops down at night so much. Sugarloaf, we have a 24-hour-a-day truck over there at located down where the town office is, down by Trufulio's. Then we have another ambulance in Phillips, Maine. That's our daytime truck. It was staffed until recently from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. We just changed it to 9 p.m. to 7 p.m. And I'll talk a little bit about how call volumes of trends have changed over the years and why we needed to make that adjustment. Farmington base, we have 2 24-hour trucks there staffed right at the hospital. And then down in Livermore, we have 1 24-hour truck. So it is kind of important to think about. We do about, this year, we're incredibly busy and we don't know exactly why. Is that going to stay that way? More people up here because COVID. We're going to be over 6,000 calls by quite a bit. And over the last 10 years, we've gained about 1,000, 1,200 calls. Now, most of our calls happen from Farmington South, 80% of those calls. Now, in the Rangeley area, we respond to about 400 calls a year. Now, the last 3 years, I haven't got the last 12 months because we just finished up our fiscal year, so I'm still working on those numbers. But just from 2017 on, we had 403 calls in the Rangeley area, 373, and then 409 would have been, well, over a year ago, it would have ended. So we'll be working on those numbers, and I'll get them to Joe to talk about, where that call volume is. We're trying to look at our whole area where our call volume works. Now, being we work as a system, one of the things that we do is we provide backup to each base. And it's kind of, different paths. So if Rangeley's truck goes out on a call and there's another call, if we can't staff that second truck either with a Northstar person and the fire department with mutual aid, or two Northstar people, the next truck may come from Phillips Base, may come from Sugarloaf, or if we're really busy, may come all the way down from Farmington. So that's where that next truck would come. Now, we practice what's called system status management. It's kind of, we're trying to figure out where's the chance of the next call. We're always looking at numbers. Where's the chance for the next call? So we'll take like snow day weekend. We know it's a busy weekend up here, especially if the snow is not too good. There's going to be a lot of action on it. So we will move resources to the north quicker versus in the shoulder season when there might not be as many calls. We may not move a resource up as quicker, because still the next call may come from down in Farmington as we jockey and move, and you can kind of see the trucks will move around. On days Saddleback's open and you can hear the radio going off, the Phillips crew may move up to Smalls Falls or even into town when that first truck goes out. And we kind of move those assets in the same way on the Sugarloaf side. If Sugarloaf goes out, we'll move that Phillips truck over as needed. Now, especially now that Saddleback's taking off, which is great for all of us, and with Sugarloaf, and we've always put an additional truck on during that ski season. It used to be staffed out of the Sugarloaf base, but we now moved that down to the Farmington base, and then we just move assets up because we found we were only using it, even when the mountain was open before over here, we were only using that about 20 to 25 times a year. So we moved it down south for this winter, which is kind of an odd winter, not real representative of our volumes. We doubled the usage of that, and that was made it allowed so we could then move the Phillips truck up here quicker and then move a Farmington truck up to Phillips as needed. It's kind of that domino effect as we slide around. So that's kind of how the system works around all of Northstar, because we back each other up. And that's a benefit of being that regional approach. Now, just so we can kind of keep track, so response times are another thing that we look at. We want to make sure our ambulances are in the right place, and I'm going to throw out some average response times up here. And these are for all calls. The average response time 3 years ago was 11.3 minutes, 2 years ago 11.5, and then the last year was 11 minutes. So we'll say 13 months ago when that ended for that period. The preliminary numbers does look like it jumped up to, I'm trying to remember, almost like 12 minutes. So we did do quite a bit of jump, and we're trying to figure out why that is. And that's at all bases. And some of the things that factor into that, especially with the lower call volume, all it does, and we've had several backcountry rescues. It takes one backcountry rescue that takes 8 hours to get to the patient, skew some of those numbers. We try to evaluate that. But another thing that's really played in, if we have what's called a PUI patient, a person under investigation for COVID, when the ambulance gets there, they have to take 20 to 30 minutes additional time to clean the ambulance. It's not allowed to go on a call. It's at a surface while we're doing that. So our volume has been up a little more. So that could be, some of the delay that we're going to look at and see what that impacts. Now, we dropped down on PUIs, but as we all know what's going on right now, we've got this surge and we're all back to doing 8 PUI patients a day. So 20 minutes, now we're up to 160 minutes of delayed time in the ambulance and trying to manage that. So, and figure out why is our call volume the way it is and exactly where is our call volume happening. All of it kind of feels like there's more people in our county. There's a whole lot of construction going on in our county too, and evaluate that. So we're always trying to make sure we have the right assets in the right place to give the best care. Any questions on that? I know that's a whole lot of, we won't have to come back with a map and show you too.
So by response time, I know this was one of the selectmen had this question that couldn't be here today. The response time, is it from the time that the call goes out and the ambulance leaves the bay?
Or gets on scene.
Or is it from the time the ambulance leaves the bay and arrives on scene?
So I will have to look at my numbers on this sheet to see, and I don't have my computer open in front of me
Okay.
because we did it in 2 ways.
Okay.
Because there's out of shoot time and the time the call comes in till the time the truck is on en route to. So I can get that number for you. Just, I don't want to say yes and then I'm not telling you the right
No,
thing.
it's fine. It was just a question
Yeah.
that one of the selectmen had. Any other questions?
Yes.
No, go ahead.
Mike, is it a common practice to have 2 ambulances leave Rangeley to go down for service and maintenance?
What the plan is, what we try to do, so we get up most of our service down at Heights. If it's a big service, we'll use Coob's garage. If it's something small, put a battery in. So what we'll do is we'll take 2 trucks and they'll meet the Phillips crew at Smalls Falls. And Phillips crew will then grab the truck and then take it down to Farmington.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Would it be, I'm not trying to micromanage what you do, but
Yeah.
wouldn't it make more sense to have a inexpensive vehicle that could come up, grab the truck and go?
if we had the resources, you mean send somebody up to grab the truck and drive it all the way back down? It would just be resource intensive. I'd have to hire somebody to be able to do that versus using the ambulance to leapfrog. Because they're still right on the edge of the coverage area.
Yeah, my concern is just coverage, My background makes me want to say, don't take anything out of town unless we absolutely have to, as you feel the same way, I'm sure, but yeah. What's the best way for a town like Rangeley that may have a lot of underlying issues that should be discussed possibly at executive session? How do we go about doing that with you?
Just schedule time. Yeah, more than happy to come up.
I don't think there's anything huge, but I think there's some sensitivity to some of the questions that might be asked in a public forum. And I don't know if we can orchestrate that in the future, but
We can certainly discuss it and
okay, thanks, Mike.
You're welcome. Anytime you have any questions, Joe has my contact information.
Joe, you're on the board now, correct? Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. Good.
Any questions from the public? Yes, Keith.
I'm gonna ask the ignorant question, I guess, with what's happening in the state. What's Northstar's view or plan moving forward as this mandate for staffing to be vaccinated or whatever, and the potential of losing employees?
Yep. So we definitely we're evaluating it. We have some, concerns. There's going to be some impact, but the thing is we're in the process right now of trying to make sure to come up with a staffing plan in case worst case scenarios happens. So to make sure we're providing coverage meeting our contract needs. But there's also some hard dates in the sand when we have to figure out who's really staying and who's really not. But we're starting preliminary stuff now, and that's at the hospital, wide level. And then once we hit that line in the sand, then I'll probably be back to talk to you about it, or at least brief Joe and see which way he wants to go, just to keep everyone updated on what's going on. But
Thank
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Have you lost anybody due to this mandate of compliance?
no, not yet, because of course still have till October 1st. So there actually is 2, the governor put on a mandate, also Maine Health has its mandate too, which was in place before. Maine Health.
Maine Health is the 17th of September, right?
Well, that's pretty well, if people have to decide, because you have to be fully vaccinated, that's actually the state of Maine's is September 17th. You need to have whatever series of vaccination, the last shot given to you. So if Johnson & Johnson 1 shot, you have to have 17th, because you have to be 14 days after that. That you're considered fully vaccinated. Maine Health had put on a little different timeline. I can't, because now it's going to change because of what the governor's mandate was. That on the 1st, if you didn't have it, you'd be suspended to 8 days to be able to try to hopefully get that window. And
What's your sense of your company's position
on
getting vaccinated, mandated or not?
it is mandated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Best of luck with that.
there's definitely some challenges. But it's a very sensitive topic and hard, because you do have some people saying, I don't want to, ambulance personnel come to my house unless they're vaccinated. So there's two sides to everything. It's just a very sensitive, tough thing.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Any other questions for Mike? Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
I will come back anytime you like.
Did you have a
I
question?
do have a question, and I'm sorry, I'm not a Rangeley resident, I have a camp up at Blue Lake, which is in Dallas. But do you serve, I just don't know, do you serve Dallas also?
Yep. I'm Dallas, most served out of Rangeley Days.
That's what I figured, but, not for sure. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
No further- Moving on, we've got a couple of guests here from the Maine Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Department, and to discuss Canadian geese and their their impact.
The goose expert or the poop expert?
So my name is Sarah Boyd, and I'm a regional wildlife biologist based out of our office in Strong, and this is Ben Nugent, who's with USDA Wildlife Services.
Thank you both for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's been, sounds like it's been an ongoing issue.
It
here.
really has, you know, it's, yeah, at many levels, you know, in town, not just here at the board level, but it, you know, it affects other community use areas, school athletic fields and whatnot. So there's, yeah, we have, I'm sure, we've tried different, you know, different measures, so we'll just hear what you have to say and hopefully enlightening.
Okay, so I mean, generally, what you've tried in the past, so we have a new vacuum, it sounds like.
Well, it's not new, we've had it for a while.
Oh, you
have it,
right.
Yeah.
$35,000.
We're looking at it.
Is it working pretty well?
In terms of cleanup, it
Yeah.
does, yeah.
Yeah.
It cleans up the mess. The biggest concern obviously is the mess they leave behind. It's a public health issue.
Yeah.
And it's not great for a tourist community to have that, you know, all over the place.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest concern.
So in terms of town property, you have the park by the boat launch, the ball fields, it sounds like.
Yeah, so yeah, so we've got the town park. There's we have the ball field out back here. You know, the school is, you know, is governed by the school board, but that's, you know, also community property with the ball fields, soccer fields, and playground. I don't think that's as much of an issue. I think they've got wood chips down.
And it's not, that's not on the water, is it? So that's more of a.
No, it's not. What we get, we have adjacent to the park, you know, we've got two churches with waterfront grassy areas and Town and Lake Motel all along there as well. So
Health center. Up at the health center where they.
up at the
play
health
soccer and
center,
stuff.
right? So adjacent to our community health center, we've got a fitness center, rehab center that also is the outside area is used quite a bit, and the geese love that area too. So
So are people on those properties trying things like coyote decoys or fencing deterrents? Is anything working for anybody or?
no,
Okay.
no, yeah, we've tried different you know, coyote decoys and, you know, just some noise activated boxes. We do not yet have a town border collie, you know, to work the open areas, but
Has anyone taken like the landscaping approach in terms of minimizing lawn or restricting access?
you know, we're required, our town park is required to have a certain amount of green space.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably reached its limit with the expanded parking that but yeah, we can only speak for the town as far as that goes.
So in terms of like, sometimes basically it's when geese see these beautiful lawns, they're wide open, they're predator free essentially. That's what they go for. It's the food they want. It's really secure. But one technique that seems to work well is restricting their sight of line, or line of sight. So shrub planting, like low shrub planting with paths that aren't direct shots to the water, the more meandering, that type of stuff. Has anyone tried that approach at all? No interest?
Because that's what we did all on the park. We did
Yeah.
all those edges and the bushes all
Yeah.
on the park, so they wouldn't come in there.
But
as
they
much.
can still probably see, like, they go up onto your launch and there's the beautiful lawn right there. So that technique is mostly effective where it's completely barricaded. So you really have to make like almost a little island of park where they have to kind of do some risky behavior, walk up your boat launch and then see the lawn there. So just, shrub planting around the edges sometimes isn't the most effective because they can still see, the lawn from the water. But so we can talk through other options. I did bring this really great guide and I can send you a digital version that talks about all of those techniques, like, examples of planting, landscape design, all that stuff, if you wanted to go that route. I realize it's pretty expensive and labor intensive and not always a home run goose solution. So this is one option.
How high would a barrier need to be, for it to be effective?
So 12
I mean, if you were gonna do like a bank, like, you may not even, it may be tough to modify the bank, at the water edge, but they say 30 inches. If you made a vertical edge to your bank, maybe 30 inches for discouraging them from coming up on the land on foot. So vegetation, would be, I'd say, I'd have to look exactly, but I'd say we want 3 feet or more. It's tough. There's all these different methods you can use. And they're not all gonna, you kind of gotta use a big selection of them, use multiple methods. And even then, if you've got the hotspot on the lake, they're probably gonna bypass all of it and be there. And I think you probably have the hotspot, right? I mean, this park is, I've cruised around a bit on the lake before, but it seems to be the biggest grassy area. And, so it's tough. How big's the flock that you see?
Last week we counted 137, up to 172.
Wow.
Is that consistent with summer? So move around.
Actually, so I would say gradually throughout the summer, it grows to well over 200.
Yeah.
As we get progressed this time of year. But right now we're about 137 to 170 days.
Yeah.
An average morning. Now the hardest part I'll see with this, whether it's shrubbery or not, it's not just grassy areas. Our dock, our beach, our basketball court, airport runway, tennis courts, anything that they can get into.
Any grass.
Even though grass surfaces sometimes. They love our walkways more than the grass, it seems like.
So times of year, I mean, they're pretty much here as soon as ice goes out.
Ice goes out, and I know for as
Before
my
that.
department, so sewer department, we actually have hatchings that come up from our other lagoon systems.
Okay.
That migrate down to the lake, obviously no lake surrounding areas where they nest a lot.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so I can give you an overview of kind of everything, all the different options you've got. I mean, you have some options probably that you haven't used yet. But first, I did want to say, you might already know, but the whole history on the resident Canada goose is, there used to be nesting, geese here in the lower 48, like pre-colonial times. They got wiped out. And then earlier in the 1900s, they took a variety of different subspecies to try to get them established nesting here in the lower 48. They worked really hard at that, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and realized they had a massive, problem starting and stopped. And now we have the problem we have today. Multiple wildlife agencies are part of the Atlantic Flyway Council, and they've done a lot of studies and realizing, how separate this resident population is from your migratory population. They don't intermix or anything. And the population's just growing every year, these resident geese. The last estimate is an older estimate, was 1.2 million, but I know it's been increasing beyond that. And the Atlantic Flyway Council has a goal of getting the population down to 700,000, which they've not been able to meet that anywhere close to that. So they've been instituting more and more methods, or more and more ways to try to, meet that goal and to try to balance things out. because it's great to have the geese, but then if you're the recipient of the damage, you realize how much of an impact it really is. And so to try to, they want to balance things out, lower the population. So they increased hunting season, they offered the early hunting season in early September to try to reduce just the resident population. They also made available depredation order on nest and eggs of resident Canada geese. So, in April around here when they're starting to nest, ideally you would, if you could, harass the geese away. You have a big area, so it's not like you're somebody that's dealing with a small pond or small location where you could disperse a couple of nesting pairs before they even nest. That would be ideal. But one option would be to sign up for a permit to you've got ways to handle the nest. You could, you can destroy the nest, but better than that is addling the eggs or oiling the eggs so that the adults stay there through the whole nesting season. By the time they realize failures occurred, it's too late to re-nest. So that's one option. Anybody can go online and sign up for that through the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So I should state that U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, they regulate everything to do with migratory birds, which the Canada Goose falls underneath that. So anytime you're getting a permit for anything, it's through them. But they've also, I'll explain later, made a way for state agencies to provide permits for agricultural producers. And in my agency, I work for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Wildlife Services, and then so we're kind of in the middle. We've got permits to be able to work with the geese or other migratory birds, and we provide people with technical assistance on how to resolve conflicts with wildlife, and we can be hired to also do the work for people as well under our permit. We're a federal agency, but we don't get a lot of federal funding for most of the work we do, so we have to enter into cooperative service agreements with people or other entities to do the work, or we just get reimbursed for our services. So anyways, that nest and egg depredation order, that's a really good resource. So you sign up for that, and then you have to send in a report on how many nests you treated during the season.
So sounds like you have nesting kind of in the same spot over here. Do you work for the town?
I do have public services.
Okay.
So I've met with another individual with the interior department, and Chuck also, we have a same discussion.
Yeah.
In prior years.
Have you ever tried the?
We hadn't made that approach yet, based on obviously some sensitivity to the community.
Yeah.
But obviously the impact that I have adversely with maybe controlling those, and Chuck was very strong in his opinion of the geese were here first. So I didn't fall through that.
Okay.
But we definitely have tried a number of approaches, as I said before, the boxes, the grape juice extract, shrubs, I tried the one forever, so we have tried.
Yeah, the grape juice, the methylphenolate that you can put down.
That's probably the number one thing that's worked.
Yeah.
By far, our best progressive measure we've made. But at this point now, we want to apply it. So that was our hardest part.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like anything, if it's not good for, public sensitivity, then obviously the nest route isn't a good way to go, but it could be a good tool in the mix, to help reduce the overall impact of this huge flock that you have on the lake. Let's see. Yeah, if you can encourage, I know it's tough around here, but encouraging, recreational hunting season would be good, that early season.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
The areas that we're primarily concerned with is no hunting allowed.
Yeah.
All of the areas within the municipality, downtown and up at the school and in this area here.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
And in terms of what, I apologize.
Just keep going.
Yeah, okay. Couple things. When you increase the bag limits, what is it now?
Is it 15, 12 or 15? I don't know.
Is it possible to talk about a depredation hunt in this particular region where professionals can eliminate some of the high density areas.
That would be through the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service would have to authorize
I
depredation.
mean, in your experience, is that something that?
Yeah, I haven't seen it happen, but if things get out of control, I mean, it might be an option that.
Well,
they
we've done it with
address.
deer in
Yeah.
certain areas and moose in certain areas, particularly in agricultural zones. I mean, you need to understand the gravity of this for Rangeley. Water quality where the swimming is always questionable. And there have been times in the past where we came close to having to shut the town park down because from the geese and ducks and such.
Yeah,
So we're talking about life safety here as opposed to, a nuisance, if you will.
sure.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, definitely human health and safety
Yep.
threat for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, we deal with this, with drinking water sources and other
Exactly.
public
Yeah.
places.
We don't have a pump station down there anymore, but at one point we did.
Yeah.
Very close by.
Yeah, over a pound of fecal matter a day, a goose can put down in one spot.
You
They're
mentioned
known to carry pathogenic bacteria, so.
Right.
Right.
Definitely.
exactly. And there's not a lot of flushing in this particular area. There's one
Yeah.
stream that comes in and the lack of water this year is not a big, so I'm very concerned.
Yeah.
As is everybody.
Definitely. As you already know, you've looked at the other options. You've got, I would probably every year just keep incorporating things, whatever you could for deterring them. Whether it's, grid wires or netting, where it's possible. I understand it's not possible everywhere, or the habitat modification, like Sarah said. These are just things to add into the mix. You've got the coyote decoys you're already using, right? You've already got
Yeah,
some
the
of
church
those in
has
place.
coyote decoys there.
The more realistic, the better. But, they can habituate to a lot of things. You gotta move them around a lot, as you know, and eventually it's not gonna do the trick on its own. But I would just keep adding in all those different methods. And harassment, I know that's kind of a hard one to write down here in the public, but, harassment is another technique. The dog was mentioned. If you had a dog, you're gonna be there a lot, right? Pretty much all the time. But a dog's a great option. If you could have a dog that's not gonna actually bite the geese, but only scare them, that would be great. Otherwise, if, public works crews are that swinging through every morning, you could do some harassment. Of course, that's gonna cause a disturbance too. You're, shooting pyrotechnics and making a loud noise, so. I understand you're boxed in here with what you can use. Those are great methods, and then people can sign up for a depredation permit through the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And anybody can. Sign up for one.
Individual homeowners.
Yes, individual homeowners, property owners, camp owners, a town can do it. And usually you can get a permit to shoot a handful of geese, so that when you're doing your harassment, you're doing your other techniques that we talked about, and you're harassing the geese, and then you shoot one or two, and then it reinforces your harassment, so that, they get the idea that there is a threat associated with all these other methods. So usually people only have to shoot a few, and it works pretty well. That's obviously not going to be possible where you are here, but just for your information and for other residents, and around the lake, that is a method that's out there.
May I ask you?
And then I've got one other,
I got a question for you. Because the town of Rangeley is in the Maine State Game Preserve, and we get a permit to do depredation techniques from the federal government, how does that impact somebody who owns property downtown within the state game preserve?
That's a good question. I would have to ask folks above me.
It's good, it's going to have to be something that needs to be
Yeah.
figured out.
That's a good
Right.
question.
If the town should enter into this agreement as well.
Yeah.
What this flock of geese does, and it's a huge flock, I mean, they have, 7 or 8 prime locations.
Okay.
So you harass them downtown,
Yeah.
they move up here, or they go to the health center, or they go over to the golf course, or they go to the airport.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of places for them
There are
where
a
the
lot.
techniques of shrubbery,
Yeah.
is a waste of time. And money.
Well, I mean, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good to have in place where you can, but it's not gonna be enough.
And the last question is there an opportunity for the two agencies to work with the town? Look the area over, a good eyeball on it, with a good set of glasses that says, here's your entire region. This is your problem, and then make recommendations to us.
Yeah.
That way, I think we would have a far better handle on what might work.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And, and one last option I haven't got to yet is the goose roundup. If anybody's familiar with that. Another one could be sensitive, definitely sensitive to the public, but, they molt every year, the geese do, late July into late June into early July, they're flightless, they have their young that can't fly yet either. And you can round them up, with kayaks. What we do is set up an enclosure on land, like it would be, say, at your park, and then round up the geese and discard them into the enclosure, crate them up, and take them off site. Earlier on, we used to relocate them. It's just not even an option. I mean, they come back and it's going to be putting a problem on somebody else. But I mean, studies show they come back, and our experiences show they come back. So in those cases, can be beneficial when you have this many geese, is to, reduce population to try to, regain that balance, between people and wildlife. And we use, CO2 euthanasia according to the American Veterinary Medical Association. That's an approved and recommended method. So that's what we do offsite. That's one of the other options. We can be hired to do that work, and that's always kind of a last resort after, all the other methods have been tried, and it seems like the way forward. So that's something that, towns can hire us to do, or individual landowners can.
And so timeline wise, if you took that option, that gives you potentially 5 to 10 years of, reduced impacts. Eventually, with similar habitat, they're going to build back up again, but it does give you, a chunk of time where you're going to have fewer goose problems. So,
Yeah.
It's a good reality check.
Yeah. So there's no easy way forward. It's not what you want to have to do.
Right.
Nobody wants to have to do that. But
You might recall last time too, speaking with the other individuals, you can't just go and eradicate the flock, right? Is there a percentage you can take away? Is that how it's always discussed last time? You can only take X the first year and then have to move down.
we can get a large amount of flock.
Okay.
Yeah, under our permit, we have,
I'm just kind of curious, it was a step measure where you had to 3 years, potentially you're down to 50 birds from 150. Compared to, all of a sudden we went from 152 down to 2. Just trying to figure that number realistically and how that big step would be.
Yeah. No roundups, you can capture quite a few geese.
With a flock the size, if we did that last option,
Yeah.
how long would it take for it to rebuild itself? I mean, I know that's a hard thing to speculate, but would it be like a 10-year fix, 3-year fix? What do you?
Yeah.
I've never personally participated, but talking with our Kelsey Sullivan is our waterfowl biologist, and he suggested 5 to 10 years. But again, they're going to build back every single year, so it's just going to be a small problem that keeps growing.
That's totally reasonable to me, 5 to 10 years. And then it's down, and then you're instituting your other methods, and hopefully it's just you're getting a stronger goose game going forward.
That's a good point, actually. If you took that route, then potentially nest depredation would work, much more effectively.
That's what I was going to ask, so we could then apply for a nest depredation permit and.
Yeah, and
for
that's
maintenance.
something that town staff can do, we can work with you, it's pretty straightforward if you know where they're nesting, so.
On a positive, sorry,
Go ahead.
on a positive kind of euthanization, does that then become a byproduct for individuals to consume that? And a positive spend of that?
We can't give it to people to eat just because of legalities, but we can donate it, for consumption of, animals in captivity or, yeah, or.
It's not even a positive spin on that, there's nothing.
Right.
there's
Yeah,
nothing
it would
like-
be great,
Absolutely.
but, yeah,
That's a good point. Shelley, you had something?
Do the geese get smarter like the deer, like knowing where to go? And I'm just saying, like, if we start doing the nesting thing after you do the elimination of some, do they like move their nests?
Yep. They'll give
So
up
you-
on those sites, they won't come back to those nesting sites, they might start going to other ones, but I would think, over the years, maybe other people,
Mhm.
other landowners might join in and eventually they're gonna start moving out of your region. I mean,
This is, so it's never gonna be like, we did this, it's done.
Yeah.
It's gonna be like, this is our goose program now, like, this is how we manage this issue.
Right.
And so nest depredation, the way that works, like Ben explained, is you boil them or addle them. The adults commit to that for the full season, and then that season is solved. And then
Right.
next year, maybe they'll tuck into a different code or something. But,
Right.
You definitely need a goose program, I think.
Right.
In this situation.
Mark?
Seems like if you did get a permit, that you could execute a large number of them. You can't do that on the ball fields of the town park, but the Chick Hill's a perfect place with all the spray fields up there and lagoons and stuff. If you could harass them enough to get them up there and finish them off up there, I think that's probably the best chance with the least amount of controversy to reduce the population.
I mean, you guys could definitely have a permit as well, and then if you have opportunities, you can do it. I mean, a lot of times it does end up being, you're removing a few because they take off. I mean, to reduce the population, shooting raw isn't really gonna be the way,
Right.
it helps, but, especially large numbers.
And so,
Yeah, John.
So I want to follow up on that, we're talking about like a capture, right? So you
Mhm.
corral them with the kayaks and put them into a group. And that happens when they're molting, which is when,
Yeah.
late June?
Late June into early July.
Okay, and you feel that that's the most effective way to do this?
For where you're at, yeah, and I would say along with it, do all the other methods too, right? But that's gonna be the one that's gonna reduce all your impacts. Otherwise, you're gonna be stuck with a huge population. That's gonna probably keep growing.
One thing that's probably happening though is you have migrants moving through, and so they may be targeting your ball fields. I mean, obviously the resident geese are getting too, but you could do the culling and then all of a sudden you have a 40 bird flock show up on your ball field. That's a different group. And,
Okay.
they're migrating through, so that would be a little bit tricky.
Yeah, once you get into September, it's
Yeah.
totally different game.
Everybody's on
Residents
the
could,
move.
or, migratory
Yeah.
geese could be here, but you're some, April through August.
But I mean, your beautiful goose habitat here with the lakes and the lawns and the ball fields, so
Yeah.
migration is always gonna be a factor.
Well, and Steve made a very good point earlier on as far as, we may get them moved out of the town park, but they'll just hit other areas of the town and they'll,
Yeah,
and
there's
they'll
two
continue to grow.
properties downtown that have a dog run up and down it every morning, scares off. We've caught as many as 115 in the morning. Scares them off, they go out into the water, the plane pushes them farther down. And then when everything settles down in the evening and the lights go on, they come in
They've gotta go somewhere.
every day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we don't have the luxury of a goose pool sweeper, so it's quite a mess.
definitely.
Any other questions? So what would the next steps be? What would would we need a,
I mean, it's up to you, whatever the town decides to do. But you have a lot of options.
Yeah, and whoever, if you have somebody that our agency can help you walk through all the steps for all the various methods, we can provide that technical assistance. And we come back again to site visit or, talk about future options.
Can we impact the herd this year? The flock, excuse me. How do we get the flock out of here?
Yeah. It would be intense harassment, really. You'd have to be on them all the time. Yeah.
So they finish molting at this point.
Yeah, to capture would be very difficult. I'd say it couldn't be done, but I wouldn't want to do it because you'd be wasting resources trying to
okay,
do that. So,
So is the best thing, Madam Chair, do you think, to plan for next spring?
Right.
Start putting a program together for next spring, we can talk about budget impacts,
Mhm.
strategy.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And, yeah, we can give you other recommendations for specific for the park for right now, you know, but.
Okay, Steve?
Can we preface that by having them do a look-see this year? So that we're prepared for the spring and
Yeah.
those
Yes.
areas are identified?
Yeah, be great to look at it now while the damage is going
I
on.
think that's a great idea. Yeah, I think part of the reconnaissance would be to work on that now with this fall with Keith. And get that put together and then
Okay,
build a program for next year, try it out.
Yeah.
all right, that will be great. So, so you'll be the point person for that, Joe
Yep.
and Keith, and show them around, and we'll go from there. Okay. Any other questions before we move on? Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. You've been very helpful.
Thank you.
Good night.
You're gonna get that presentation with Joe?
Thank
And
Yeah, this
you're
one.
gonna email that
I have a
digital?
digital, if you want it, I can email Joe. I mean, it's just a good overview of stuff we've tried.
Okay.
Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thank you. Have a good
Appreciate it.
evening. Moving on to number 4, review and approve meeting minutes for August 2nd.
So
We have Steve's motion
Second.
and Shelley seconds. Any questions, comments, suggested corrections? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Public to speak on a non-agenda item. Mike.
I just want to got that information, that the response time is from dispatch to on scene.
Okay,
So I went out and looked real quick about.
I appreciate that. I'll let the selectmen know that asked specifically. All
I'm
right.
sorry, I couldn't answer it, 'cause then we do separate that. Sometimes we want to make sure crews are getting out of the building
Right.
in a timely manner, so I just want to make
Okay.
sure we're getting that information.
Thank you very
That's
much.
what, right?
Thank you, Mike.
Even though that was a riveting conversation. That's a lot.
Glad you stayed, right?
Any other public to speak on a non-agenda item? All right, moving on. Boards and committees, we have got the June 9th and June 23rd planning board meeting minutes in our packets for your review. Section 8 consent items, we've got event permit applications. First is the Trail Town Festival.
Madam Chair, I move the Trail Town Festival on the Haley Park, Pond Street. On the, when is it, Saturday, September 4th, rain date, none.
Steve's motion,
Second.
Shelley seconds. Comments, questions? Yes, Shelley.
They covered their insurance.
What was the question?
Insurance.
Yeah, there's $1 million liability and $300,000.
Okay.
Look up right on the back of the first page, top line.
Yes. Thank you. All right.
Flip it over top line.
Cool.
All right, any other questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's unanimous.
Madam Chair, I move Town of Rangeley 9/11 March happening on 9/11/2021. Rain date is same date.
Steve's motion
Second.
and Shelley seconds. Comments, questions? Bacon will be overseeing this. Shelley, did you have a question?
No.
Okay, all right. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Rangeley Tennis Group. It's got a request for an annual year-end tennis bash.
Madam Chair, I make a motion, we approve Rangeley Tennis Town Courts Group annual year tennis batch on August 31st, rain date Wednesday, September 1.
Steve's motion.
Second.
Shelley seconds. Any other questions, comments? Shelley,
Is it at both or just the park?
Only in Rangeley, Madam Chair.
just in the Rangeley.
And has the park commission approved it?
You don't meet until Thursday.
It's pending park commission.
All right.
Yeah, they'll meet this Thursday.
All right, all those in favor? And that's unanimous. Next, we've got a big old Adirondack chair in Quasit Park. And looks like we've got, I don't know if you've had a chance to review the letter from, we've got a letter from Sarah and Matt Higgins, Dan and Debbie Higgins, Laura and Paul Reynolds, Pat and Patty Butler, Alan Bill Oppenheim, and Jim and Debbie Higgins, who wish to donate this this large handcrafted Adirondack chair to remain in the Aquatic Park.
Madam Chair, I make a motion, we accept the donation from all that group of people for the Aquatic Town Park.
Steve's motion
Second.
and Shelley seconds. Any other comments, questions? Yes, Keith.
I just have one question. I'm privy of this, but I was just curious if the winter plants in this chair. If it needs to be stored or if we're leaving it out in the snow. That's not a question I have.
The chair can be removed and returned. Well, no, if they, I guess that is not addressed in this letter. And
Madam Chair, I think, if the board approves this, we can consult the donors and find out, if they want to store it for the winter, or if they are okay with it being outside, or if they would like us to store it for them. I think we can operationally work on it.
That's fine. I just want to check.
It's a good question.
yeah, it is a good question because they have, they've said they will cover the cost of maintaining, the chair over time. So you'll follow up with the donors.
Can I amend my motion?
Yes.
Should I?
I mean, I think it's just to move to accept it. So to accept the donation, I think your motion was perfectly.
But do we want to accept it and let, without knowing what's going to happen with this thing in the off seasons? That's my point.
So should we table it?
I think you can accept it. I think that's in order. There is a sentence in here that says it can be removed and returned to the donors at any time if it's unsafe or unfit. So if we think it's unfit to be there in the wintertime, worst case scenario, we can ask them to remove it for the winter. But I think we can work something out operationally.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Shelley?
And are we going to say where it goes?
If you'd like to get that far into it, Madam Chair, I think I would leave that to public services to work with the donors
Right.
or to make that determination on his own where it makes it best fit.
Okay.
I'm happy
Good
with
question.
Steve figuring it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Next is the MDOT Local Roads Assistance Program. And a vote to authorize the town manager to sign. Joe, you want to just briefly review this?
Sure, Madam Chair. This is a pool of money that exists at the state level. It's divvied out to towns based on the number of miles of town maintained road that they have. I think it's $600 a mile. Our amount is $29,900. That's down a little bit than it was a couple of years ago. I think it was $32,000 last time I looked. So it's come down a little bit, but everybody's gone down the same percentage statewide. This can only be used for capital projects. So Keith has given me the number for Allen Street that was performed in the last fiscal year. And that's on item number 1. So that part's all filled out. Just needs a signature. It needs to get to Augusta. I think it's by November 1st. We've got plenty of time to get it there, but it's got to get signed, emailed over to Augusta, and then they'll disperse that payment. I think in December.
All right, so we need a motion to authorize the town manager to sign the LRAP.
I move what she said.
I'll
I
second.
second.
Shelley can second. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor? And that's all those in favor. Okay, unanimous.
I just have one question on that.
Go ahead.
So when those funds come back, is that, because that was part of the construction loan, correct? Does that go to as a payment or does this come in as income for,
It comes in as revenue,
comes in as revenue? Okay.
so it's not necessarily marked to this project, just comes in as revenue.
All right.
Next is the Wilson's Mills Lincoln Plantation fire contract. Joe, why don't you brief the board on how this?
So, Madam Chair, Chief Bacon has been in communication with the assessors out in the plantation, otherwise known as Wilson's Mills, for I think close to a year now. And they've reached out to him for some assistance, kind of getting their fire department up to par, so to speak. They're working to get their Bureau of Labor Standards books in order, and just generally have some professional fire service management. It does speak a lot about Rangeley, that they reached out to us, they reached out to Chief Bacon, they know that we've got a good fire department, good professional administration there. So they reached out, they need help with those type of things, and the general management of their fire department and reporting to the Board of Assessors over there. The amount is $3,000, I think, annually for those services. There are other things in there, charges for fire services, not included in section 2A, shall be billed $100 per hour per truck. So it's management, but also certain responses to fire if we get called over there. So this, Mike and I had Chief Bacon and I had a conference with Steve Langsdorff, and the result is this document. So Steve actually wrote this document for us. And furthermore, Madam Chair, Wilson's Mills has signed this. Tracy, I think, has the signed version of it. So if the board does approve it, it will be executed today.
All right, yeah, Steve, go ahead.
At the last town meeting, we moved the fire chief's responsibilities under the purview of the town manager. I know Wilson's Mills may be different with their assessors, but shouldn't the town manager be signing this document as opposed to the chair here? And not that I don't want you to sign.
No,
something,
it's a
I'm
good
just curious
question.
as to the steps that should be taken, because it says signed by the chair.
It could be, the way this is written, the way Steve wrote it was to have the chair of the select board sign it. We could rewrite it and have it be the
No,
town manager.
what my recommendation would be is next year, make Langsdorff, Steve Langsdorff aware that you supervise the fire department now. Prior to that, it was the board.
You're right.
So next contract, I'm happy. I'm just pointing that out.
So a question, do we sign the contracts for the other Franklin County, or do we have you sign those? Franklin County, this.
Town manager signs for the
town
counties.
manager signs for the county.
Yeah, I
That
think
would be
you
the same.
authorized me to do that, I believe. Yeah. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, so yeah, for the sake of consistency, Steve's right. It would, yeah, we'll just have that modified next year. Any other questions or comments on the contract?
I move the contract as written, authorize the chair to sign.
Steve's motion,
Second.
Shelley seconds. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's unanimous. Moving on to the Allen Street payment. Joe's let us know that this is a, there's notations here. It's a pay request for $122,344.80. There is still monies retained to ensure the grass grows on the side of the road. And I think, Joe, you had a specific amount for that.
Dude, I can't read it right now. It's in the mid 40,000 range.
Yeah,
It's in a very small print on this page.
okay.
48,879.43.
Questions or comments?
Madam Chair, I move $122,344.80 the Allen Street project be paid to M&H.
Steve's motion and Shelley seconds. Any other discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Last item in the consent category is the Loon Lake Road payment to EL Vining in the amount of $27,151. Yes.
Keith, could you explain to me why that culvert up there before Randy, just past Morris and Linda's house up there, why that extends out in the bucket brush 12 feet and back up on the hill? What's going on with that?
So part of the problem, problem there is after that one was laid out, we came back and that was made there. And also looked at the exaggeration of some of the drainage, which that being one of the problem became as the road elevation changes in some of that area. So we'll say from Morris and Linda's up to Haynes's house, we're going to be elevated about 2 feet to gain some visual advancement. Much like the other side of that, it's about 3 feet in that dip, again, to gain some base and proximity to safety for people. So the idea was to maintain it, to get a 3-to-1 slope off the elevation of the road and have it look, it would, once the road's established, come up an elevation, you widen it out 10 feet with pavement, and you have your 3-to-1 dirt slope, and that culvert won't seem so exaggerated, but that might be short, that one might be short enough where we are now for the fact that we caught the upper ones.
All right, second point on those there. Are we redirecting water onto people's property that is new and now all of a sudden someone's going to find their garden flooded, their backyard having a trench through it because of water?
So in my opinion, after reviewing plans and reviewing the cross culverts specifically, that all those water inlets, outlets are existing. Now they may be more evident based on the shrubs are gone, ditching has been done, but there's no new territories that water's going to be shallow. No.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, Shelley.
There's another spot that's after, Ronnie Haynes, you know, that's like, I don't know, that one goes way out off that road. And you said that it's gonna be built up so much, so you think the water will run? I mean, it just looks like in some spots, like by the Knight's house, that it, like the water won't get that high.
Right, so I guess the hardest
Cross
part,
back and forth, so it looks like it's gonna pool right there and go into their yard.
so the hardest part right now is what they did do is they through their work of ditching, they grubbed a lot of it to get the clear base there. So we estimate next week or as early as this week, in the next week, to start drinking the base up to have that better product brought in. The ditches have to come up also. So the whole road's gonna come up and the ditches are gonna follow with that road. So current culverts are at proper elevation, but the ditches are not current. So those ponding areas will come up when they bring the road up.
Okay.
So what's ponding right now will not be a problem when the road is.
Yeah, because there's one, like it's that far. It's like,
Agreed.
well, I don't remember seeing the water ever get that high in my lifetime, but I lived on that.
No, and that's again, that will be corrected as they move forward.
Okay.
Great.
A lot of talk at the coffee shop.
I've had quite a few phone calls. Why do you feel?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I move $27,151 to EL Vining on the Loon Lake Road payment.
Steve's
Okay.
motion is Shelley seconds. Any other discussion? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. That's it, consent items. We move into correspondence and we do have, let's see here. Correspondence from in there. Carolyn Schwalbe.
Yes, and I'm here.
Yes, and
That's
you-
why I'm here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, yeah, feel free, I mean, so talk about why, why you wrote the letter and what your hoping for an outcome.
Okay, certainly, and thank you for allowing me to speak at your meeting, because I realize I'm not a resident of Rangeley. I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania now. I grew up in Rangeley. My mother grew up here, my grandfather grew up here, my great-grandfather grew up here. So I have a place up at Loon Lake, and I'm currently the chairman of the Loon Lake Association, which is a lake association, not a homeowners association. And this association's been around for almost 50 years. Next year will be our 50th anniversary. And we've worked very hard. I watched my mother on the board, well, as a member of the association, and a lot of our neighbors up there, working for many years to protect the water quality and improve water quality, maintain it, which of course then helps property value and wildlife and all that. I would ask, did you have a chance to read my letter at all? Or was it, I know it was. a
No,
little
it's in,
late.
yeah, it's in here. No, very, very detailed.
Okay, so our concerns, the state has put forth a rulemaking packet that Inland Fisheries and Wildlife has put forth this rulemaking packet with something like 243 changes statewide. But the changes we were concerned about were the ones that affected Inland Lake. And that was to add ice fishing there and to add live fish and smelts for bait, which has never been on that lake before, to my knowledge. And we're concerned about that for the reasons that I go into it in the letter. One of the things that concerns us is when you introduce ice fishing and live bait, you're really increasing the chance of getting invasive species in there, whether it's a plant species or fish, something else that might come from the bait bucket, or as you're wear off your fishing gear. Even in the winter, you can get that from lake to lake. So we're concerned, and I know you can't answer this, but we don't quite understand why the state has made the North Zone no live bait, and yet they have quite a few exceptions and adding a lot more in this packet that's going before them for vote, for their advisory council for vote in September. So we opposed it. The board, we polled all the homeowners, and I realize that maybe not everybody does, but I guess maybe half of Loon Lake is in Rangeley, the other half is in Dallas. The part with the houses on it is in Dallas. The other half is in conservation through the Stephen Phillips Memorial Trust and is managed by Rangeley Lakes Heritage Trust. So we polled all the homeowners. We have 56 properties up there. We polled the ones we have contacts for, which is 53 people. 51 people responded as opposed to both those things. So pretty much, well, every homeowner, 2 were neutral, and 51 property owners are against both those items, ice fishing, live fish, bait. So we have sent a letter to the state, to the Fisheries and Wildlife on that. And 42 of those people wrote individual letters during the public comment period, which is now closed. That closed on August 5th. So I wasn't sure if the town of Rangeley would have a position on that. If you're interested in looking into that more, I have quite a bit of information on that. The public comment period is closed. However, they have a meeting tomorrow in Augusta, which I plan to attend, the advisory council, and to present this information one more time to them why we're concerned. And not just concerned for Blue Lake, but for me, in my letter, my personal letter, which I copied you on, goes into this. This is the Rangeley region, which is known for trout and salmon, fly fishing. And they're very concerned about not having invasive species, and yet they want to put 2 new activities on several lakes, not just Loon Lake, but there's 8 other ponds.
8 ponds across the state.
There's, well, in this region. In Region D, there's 8. There's Sandy River chain of ponds, Toothaker, several others.
So you have to look.
You have the list. So I'm concerned. I understand the state is looking at it in watershed. They talk about the drainage of the Rangeley Lake, and they're talking about tributaries and things going through the watershed to other lakes, but I'm looking at it as the region, and we know that these things can be transferred. If it would get into a lake, it could be transferred by a fishing line or a boat or somehow into another lake. It doesn't have to go through the tributaries and through the watershed to get there. I'm concerned because I lived in Vermont where this was a huge problem. There's lakes you can't even step on the bottom because of the zebra mussels. You can't swim in them because of the weeds. And I think Southern Maine is having similar problems. So I'm concerned for the town of Rangeley. So that was one reason I wrote a copy of the letter on. Some of my concerns are in here, but Dallas has since written a letter, which I got because I requested all the letters from the state that they received. And they had a really good point about the parking on Moon Lake Road and obstructed traffic. There's no place to park. The public access is just past the snowmobile garage or club. It's right, which I thought was still on Rangeley's part of the road, but I think Dallas, is it on Dallas's part of the road?
Correct.
It's on Dallas?
Correct.
Yeah, because this was their concern, but it could back up onto Rangeley's part of the road, so I wanted to present that to you, that might be something of concern. Yes.
Tracy?
Carolyn, were you able to confirm that they're talking about Moon Pond? Because the IF&W Francis told me that they were not allowing live bait in our area.
Right, and that is, well, that is what's in that email. That is not what I'm reading in the, unless they've done something since they published that list that was also in the attachment. I will find out tomorrow for sure. I was not able to find it today.
Yeah, if you could let me know, just
But
because
I
I'd like to
will, because
confirm
I
that.
appreciate that you were able to, and it's nice to meet you in person. I appreciate that you sent me the information and you took my phone calls and talked to me about this, because this could be very serious for the region. And even if the live fish as bait is being withdrawn, which we hope it would be, the ice fishing itself can also still introduce invasive species. And in the southern part of the state, they have documented that the way northern pike got into those lakes was through illegal stocking. There's a lot of, I don't think we don't want northern pike in the lake, and I don't think we want it in the region. Yeah, and like I said, the public comment period is closed. However, I have learned that the commissioner, Judy Caruso, she does have ultimate authority to either veto or go along with the advisory council's recommendations. So if the select board would be concerned about this for the Rangeley region and want to make a statement, I believe you still could write a letter directly to the commissioner stating any concerns you would have. And that could be effective. But I don't know if you're taking a position. I wanted to please ask that you would. I personally think it's a lot of risk, and we don't understand why the state would be willing to take the risk of having these species brought into a historic region like this.
Keith?
Just quickly, is it possible to say looking at this as the lake as a potential opportunity to decrease fish population? So if I'm not sure if it's published or not. I mean, one way to do that would be obviously open up opportunities to have fish. In order to have the species thrive, you look at reducing numbers so that the larger fish actually have less competition with same species. So I'm just curious if the state has a method to this biology wise, if they're looking to, by introducing ice fishing, which we don't have very much of in this area at all.
We have it on Haley Pond right now.
One pond of all the regions around us, you're driving, not that I'm trying to say anything against that, but just, that one pond locally. Nothing against that. I'm just trying to think if the state has a method to this, but we're aware.
Well, this is one of our questions, and I will probably be asking this tomorrow, is one of their part of the rationale for this is supposedly that there's public interest in expanding ice fishing ponds. I think there's a lot of pressure on the southern lakes for ice fishing, and they're looking for places to open it up. I personally am questioning having it in the Rangeley region at all because of the risk, because this area depends on tourism And if you get the weeds or the zebra mussels, or even potentially the northern pike, which we would hope would not happen here, that could potentially destroy what you have here. Now, I have nothing against ice fishing, and I would like to add that even homeowners at Moon Lake who like to ice fish, including my husband who's from Minnesota, and Minnesota, they love ice fishing. That is what they do, and they love their northern pike. But northern pike is not native to Maine at all. It definitely is not native to this area. And as a biologist myself, I don't quite understand where the state's coming from, but I don't know the pressures they have. I don't know a lot about Maine's overall conservation approach. I think there's a push to get this up into this north zone, and to me, it is very contradictory to their public policies of fighting invasive species. I think it's a contradictory policy, and I don't understand it, but I hope you understand. But we have nothing against ice fishing. We just feel it's not appropriate to Loon Lake, partly because the ambulance, what's the response time? The warden, what's the response time? The parking. There is no parking, and people are gonna have a lot of snowmobiles, and there's no place to go to the, there's no place to come up there or put your garbage.
Steve?
Carolyn, it's great to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Couple of things I want to try to clear up. Judy Comusio does not have unilateral authority.
She does.
When the advisory council makes the vote, that's the vote.
Okay, then I
Just so
was,
that you're prepared for that when in your quest. I agree with you. I also oppose the no live fishes bait. And we've had, I used to serve on the advisory council, and Shelby Russo is our local representative. I hope you've had conversation with her.
we have, and she was at our, not for this topic, but I have met her. She was at our meeting the other day for a different reason.
Yeah, I spoke with her as well. I sent in my letter, but the point I want to try to make is that the watershed is a big issue, and as a biologist, I'm sure you're aware that certain watersheds go towards the Kennebec River and certain watersheds go towards the Androscoggin River.
Correct.
They are very cognizant of invasive species into our watershed base in this area. The lake was chosen because of a number of criterion that has been set up. So when you go down there, I would suggest and encourage you to formulate your questions based upon the criterion that's public knowledge. So they should get that to you. And you can get it on their website as well. My personal opinion from a Rangeley standpoint, where we enjoy the cooperation of IF&W to come and help with a goose poop situation and others that we have, I think it would not be smart for us to take a position, but let the sportsmen and the associations and those that are directly impacted by this. But for travel and tourism community not to accept a potential addition to our very weak ice fishing opportunities up in this region. Some would say we're shooting ourselves in the foot, particularly if we can encourage them to say we can add other opportunities, providing everything is dead and not live. I have been fighting for years, and I have not been successful to get the state of Maine, IF&W and others, to regulate bait dealers. That's the problem. Because bait dealers get it from all over the place, fill up a bucket and sell it. They have no idea what's in it. And we are a bucket away in any one of our lakes from an invasive species. So you're absolutely correct in that regard.
Thank you. That's helpful. Thank you.
But so we can certainly put it on, the next meeting's agenda to see if the board wishes to, take a stance. I think Steve makes a good point. I think ice fishing is becoming more difficult in southern Maine. And ice fishing derbies that have been scheduled for years and years, they cancel them year after year because the waters are just not freezing to the extent that they used to. So But thank you very much.
Well, thank you for allowing me to speak. Again, I understand as a non-resident, that is a privilege. And I really appreciate your time. It's
All right.
Great to see you.
very nice to see you.
Thank you.
To see everybody. I just keep thinking, where's the school? Where's my elementary school?
Oh, goodness. Moving on to old business correspondence from Mark Beauregard. If we could, we're missing two selectmen that I think had questions. If we could table this to the next meeting. Mark, do you mind?
Not at all.
Okay, I think that would be appreciative. New business? John, I didn't skip anything, did I? New business, dangerous building, 124 Cary Road. And Bailey, looks like you've had one more thing to add to your list. Would you care to tell us about, you know, what's going on and
Yeah, I've had multiple concerns brought to me about 124 Cary Road. There's multiple trees down on the property. The garage is about to collapse on itself and possibly into the wall of the house. The house roof completely needs to be replaced. I don't know the condition of the walls of the house, if it's the whole structure is compromised or not. I wouldn't enter the building.
okay,
I did visit the property in the spring with a gentleman from a company that had been hired by the mortgage company to determine if the building was occupied or not. I have not heard anything since about that situation. In discussion with him, he said that their company may or may not be hired to remove the building, to repair the building, but I have not heard anything from them since. I reached out multiple times to the owners of the property. We did send a certified letter and received back that someone had accepted the letter, but never heard anything from them. I would like to approach this as a dangerous building and look at getting it removed because it is a hazard rate in downtown Boston.
mhm.
Need a motion?
For a public hearing, I believe we do.
Right, the next step would be to schedule a public hearing. I might suggest, Madam Chair, I know it's a ways to September 7th, I think that's 2.5 weeks, but I might suggest September 20th, that way Bailey can send kind of a notice of the public hearing that may generate some action there. I would recommend September 20th, that is the second or third Monday, right?
And the public hearing is for demolition?
Public hearing would be to determine whether it is a dangerous building, that's an action that the board will
Okay.
be presented with, you make that determination.
Can
She
you
can't
make
make-
that determination by herself, or would you need other?
You cannot make that determination without first holding a public hearing.
Okay. Do you need us there for a site visit, or are you gonna bring photos? What would be the best way to?
What do you recommend?
I think we've had photos in the past.
Yeah, I don't think a site visit is necessary. I know
Okay.
Steve has driven by it probably multiple times a day. Every day, so I can definitely provide pictures. I
That'd be
have taken
great.
pictures from the whole surrounding area,
Okay.
looking at the house.
All right, yeah, those could be available for the public hearing. That would be helpful. Shelley?
So you said that there's a bank involved?
I just know that the mortgage company had hired this company to come and declare it not occupied.
So you said the certified letter to the borrowers and, I mean, the owners and the bank?
I did not have an address to send to the bank. So
Um,
all we have on record is the address of the owners.
Cause you could, at the registry, you should be able to find that.
I didn't hear that, Shay.
At the registry of deeds, you should be able to see, you can look up their name if you go to the Franklin County Register of Deeds. If you look up them by name, you should be able to see if there's been any mortgages, any liens in between.
I believe I did do a lien search and I didn't find any liens on the property at the time of looking for it.
Mhm.
That was when I sent the first letter in May. I can definitely check again. It's been a few months since May, so I'll look into that again and see if I can find an address, and then we can maybe send a notice to both the owners and mortgage company of the public hearing.
Right, one of the default settings of a public hearing, Madam Chair, is that there's a public notice that goes out.
Right.
And if they're in California, they may not see the public notice, but the intent of that is to kind of broadcast that out.
Mhm.
Hey, the board's gonna be talking about this, if you have any interest in it, you may want
Right.
to be there.
Question.
Yes. Steve.
So, if we get the cart before the horse here, I mean, hold a public hearing and then we say it's condemned without the information. My question is, we got to authorize Bailey to move forward with all this, correct or not?
The board needs to determine whether it's a dangerous building.
And we need help to do that by having somebody say, in our opinion, A, B, C, D, F, G, this doesn't work and we need to condemn.
After there's a public hearing.
Okay, I move the public hearing on the 20th of September, is that right?
Yeah, that's what I recommend, Madam Chair. yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Yep, Steve's motion,
6 p.m. start of your meeting.
6 PM at the start.
Sure, works for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
You the chair, baby. You can tell me
Well, I
when to
just,
be
it's
there.
your motion.
Yeah.
Looks like I know.
So Shelley seconds. And then just to echo Shelley's sentiment from the banker gal herself, that if there is a mortgage company involved, every effort should be made to notify them. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Shelley.
Is that their address and name?
Yes, that's the mailing address we have on file.
All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you, Bailey. Moving on to the town manager report. Yes.
Bailey, I appreciate you being here and not just schlepping it on the Joe. Because, no, I'm serious, because there could be questions that right in your ballpark. You know, I just want you to know I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
I'm
very
sure we
much.
all do.
Town manager report, we've got department head updates from Rangeley PD. And we also have one from Bailey. Thank you very much. It's been, we have 86 permits so far for this calendar year. What's the usual?
From doing the town report, the average that I found was about 60.
Wow.
So last year we were up over 100, this year we're easily going to hit 100. I might be at 100 right now that I just haven't
Mhm.
put into the system yet.
Busy time.
Yes.
Thank you.
And no luck with that ad for the assistant code enforcement.
We had, actually Bailey and I talked about it earlier, she does have an applicant. We'll talk about tomorrow with Tracy in terms of scheduling,
Okay.
trying to get an interview set up. So there has been some interest in that. Hopefully we get an interview scheduled next week, next week. That's what we're shooting for.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Bailey. We have an elected officials workshop webinar scheduled for the 18th, which would be Wednesday of this week. And that is available by, via Zoom. And does that require pre-registration?
I believe so, yes.
Okay,
And it would meet the FOIA requirement that you folks have annually also. And I don't know what Etna's schedule is going to be like, but it'd be really good for her to take it.
okay.
So,
All right, I'll message Ethna and see if she's going to be in any possibility to zoom in on
if
this.
you could let me know, I'll get her registered. I've got it all set up for anyone to be registered.
Okay.
So they've got your updated information. So.
All right.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Given her situation, that she's probably not gonna be able to do it.
Yeah, most likely not.
But she's got to remember the 120 days to get them done.
Right, from the date she was sworn in?
Yes.
Okay, Yeah. A reminder of that.
Thank you.
Mhm. We've got our first selectmen's meeting in September, conflicting with Labor Day. So we need to move that September 6th meeting either to September 7th, the next day. You will see a note that there is a public hearing for the Rising Tide Towers on September 7th as well, for that cell tower we were just discussing earlier. Trying to make a reach for my calendar.
Are you recommending something other than the 7th? Because, or are we all set with 7th?
We all set with? Yeah. So people, yeah, if, I think Ethan mentioned the last meeting, I mean, he sent in his own personal comment on the proposed tower, and folks are able to do the same. So we'll move that September 6th meeting to the 7th. Starting at 6 p.m. Any questions on the notice of public hearing that Joe and Tracy have put in our packets? Other business. Joe, I'll turn that over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Overlook sidewalk, as you've seen, is paved and awaiting striping. Keith, do you know the date of striping?
This Thursday.
So this Thursday, the striping will take place. That's the fog line and the crosswalks. I think Keith is still working on charging the battery and the one crosswalk sign that's up. That's pretty much the update there. Other than I have seen a lot of people walking on it. When I came into town this morning, I saw a couple of folks. It was interesting to see, they got into the Overlook parking lot, they got to the edge of Route 4, stopped, turned around and headed back towards the sidewalk. So people are really using that, that Overlook. They were out for their morning walk, and they were specifically using that new sidewalk, so it's good.
Yeah, it's really nice to see. I see it a lot in front of my office, and to get people off that shoulder area, it's just so much safer. So super. And you have an update for the assessor proposal?
Yes, Madam Chair, I just want to let the board know that I have spoken with Rob. I think we've reached a pretty good solution. I don't have that in writing yet because he's busy with other towns, and Matt was on vacation. But I believe we're going to be able to stay at our budgeted amount.
Okay. Thank you for that extra effort.
You're welcome. And I'll bring that contract to folks on the 7th. And Rob has responded to this email, by the way. He said you'll make that happen. And if you approve a contract, or when you approve a contract, the board would be in order for the board to appoint the assessor.
Already had the Loon Lake Road update. Any broadband update?
The only update is that we did put out a press release a week or so ago to the major outlets. Basically just talk about our progress to date. We're working on the NTIA grant, which we should know a little bit more about. I think in November, we know for sure if we're successful with that. Kind of a sidebar, Tracy and I were talking earlier about possibly setting up a quarterly meeting. That's one of the big topics that I know the Economic Opportunity Committee and the broadband delegates want to have a follow-up conversation to broadband in a quarterly meeting format. So I'm thinking the end of September. I did ask Rangeley Plantation by email if they were interested in hosting, and they replied that they were concerned about not having enough room to space out if we needed to. So I think we'll reach out to the school. That's something I'm going to talk to Tracy about tomorrow, try to work on that, getting that set up. So there's broadband, and then I think there may be other things that the communities might want to talk about. Dry hydrants, for instance.
Sure. Thank you. Then the Bureau of Parks and Land, Bald Mountain Telecommunications Tower Survey.
So Madam Chair, this is a follow-up to the last meeting. I think Selectman Philbrook brought this up, and then of course Ethan brought the one up on Dallas Hill. I believe the public comment period for this ends at midnight tonight. If you'd like me to send an email, I'd be happy to do that after the meeting. If you'd like me to send on your behalf a letter to the public hearing folks for Dallas Hill, I'd be willing to do that also. Of course, the timeline's a little less strict on that, but happy to correspond with them in your direction.
Well, we had before, prior to the meeting, we had toured the fire station in Aquasic and you know, next door here in Rangeley, and you know, the chief discussed his, you know, the challenges of a lack of communication, and specifically and how these two towers could help, especially down near the S turns. He mentioned specifically with this Dallas Plantation Tower. So is the board okay with you know, with Joe writing a letter of support for both?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. Do you need a motion or just a consensus?
Motion would be good.
I move a letter of support for both cell phone proposals, the extension on Ball Mountain and the one on Dallas Hill, new tower on Dallas Hill.
Steve's motion and Shelley seconds. Any other discussion or comment? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. And then summary of the America Rescue Plan Act Priority Survey. Joe?
Madam Chair, this was compiled by Maine Municipal Association. It's based on information they received from 40 or 50 or 60 responding towns across the state. It does not include Rangeley. I had not responded at this time. However, the updated version that's coming out in September will have Rangeley's input, hopefully the rest of Franklin County's input. It just shows what this report will look like when you get it back. It breaks down the items of highest interest to organizations. Infrastructure was 1, broadband was 2, government services 3, et cetera, et cetera. So this is what we'll see hopefully mid-September in an updated format with more information in it, better data. I have not heard back yet from the county commissioners based on our meeting we had a few weeks ago, but I'll keep you posted as I hear things.
Thank you. That's it under town manager report. Is there any select board communication? Steve?
No.
Shelley? No, I don't have anything either. Mark?
Just like to pass this along, I got a call this afternoon at 3 o'clock from Durgo Solar, and they received correspondence that Franklin County Superior Court denied the appeal by the abutters on the proposed solar project, and they found that Bailey issued a valid permit and that the town did everything correctly. And that they ruled, that was the substance part, that everything the town did was correct. And on the procedural part, they found that the abutters did not follow the proper procedure when they submitted their appeal during the appeal process. But even if they had, it still would have failed based on the work that the town did correct. So, I don't know if you received anything on that, Joe, or not.
I haven't been near my desk, Madam Chair, since shortly before 4, so.
Yeah, but you should be getting that soon, certain that's correct information.
Okay.
So Bailey was new on the job at the time. She sought the town's legal counsel to help her work her way through that. And, I think she to be commended for doing everything correctly and having the Superior Court uphold it.
Yeah, I forgot this has been going on for quite a while, so congratulations, you get to cross this off your list. And
Yeah, that's
Thank you.
good news.
Yeah, it is, thank you.
Madam Chair, when I see the documents, I'll share them with the board, so you'll have it.
That'd be great. Yes, Bailey.
I had finished that annotated copy of chapter 38 for you. I wanted to know if there were any comments tonight, if there are any questions tonight, or how you would like to move forward in reviewing that.
I honestly haven't had a chance to review it.
I have a lot of questions on it. Well, I shouldn't say, I have a few, but there's 2 selectmen on here. Can we, if not discuss at the next meeting, maybe hold a workshop with? Because there's a lot of things in here.
Yeah.
that Might be helpful.
Yeah, so at our next select board meeting, when we've got a broader representation, we'll decide and discuss moving forward. And Steve certainly brings up a good point to maybe have a Q&A session. There is
That really quick. Legal room.
so this is Shelley just did a quick search on the abandoned property. So
Sign it before time. One was mortgage with discharge as a sign, and then if you hit next, it looks like Wells Fargo has a mortgage on it. It's been assigned to different banks.
let's just see if you pull up the abstract, it just indicates whether it's been discharged or not. Yeah, this has not been discharged, but I can see there would be a challenge for someone who doesn't do this on a regular basis to follow the line.
That's why I gave it to her. Just to make sure I was reading
Because
right.
it's, there are, it does look like, there has, it had been discharged or signed, and the thing is with the registry, things don't always appear in chronological order. It's very frustrating.
Yeah.
So we'll just take a closer look at this, and because ideally it might, you might be able to send a letter to Wells Fargo directly,
Wells
just,
Fargo will probably send them a letter that you haven't met your agreement in the mortgage deed. Because if the town were to tear that building down, now it's
oh,
land.
shoot, yeah.
And there was a mortgage, wasn't land mortgage, it was for a structure on the property. So now you've got another party that's in the middle of it.
Yeah, so there appears to be an undischarged mortgage.
Right.
So that's the way we'll label it. And
I do recall Tom having quite a battle with Wells Fargo. One day I recall being reached out to directly for a company to come up here and look at removing the trees, one, and then assessing the house. And I remember Tom having trying to have communications with Wells Fargo, and it was like, it's not like, just the ring around the rosy with every individual in there. Well, it's not, I don't have that. Whatever, just
Big banks,
everyone keep feeding them off, so
right,
good luck. I hate to say that. I mean,
yeah.
Let's lean them and assign liability to them. Don't leave it on us then.
Mhm.
Seriously,
Yeah,
there's no reason why the town of Rangeley should be liable for this sort. And the people who are in McWassing don't deserve, everywhere in Rangeley, they don't deserve this. So, there must be some quick letter from our legal that says, here are your options.
right.
Step up or it comes down.
Shelley?
So if there's a mortgage, that means there's someone has the insurance.
Nobody's
And if the
paying.
insurance company takes one look at that building, they're gonna send them a cancellation notice.
Absolutely.
Then that gets the bank's attention even more.
So we'll do our due diligence, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
That was one of the reasons why I requested not the 7th, but the 20th. That gives
Exactly.
Bailey and
Yeah.
us extra time
Yeah.
to look at that, and then also look at the procedural steps involved with condemning this building.
Okay. There is no executive session tonight. Sorry, Bailey. Yes.
Not trying to go in a circle, I just wanna run back to chapter 38 really quick, if we can maybe set a date to do a workshop or something. Just because I do have a goal of maybe January, being able to enact this, just because that gives us a nice even date to start next year's building permits.
So it requires a town meeting.
For a required town meeting. There is a timeline, I think, that we put on the cover of this.
Yeah, it was in there.
We really need a full board to discuss anything town.
And knowing what's
meeting.
going on with one of them, can I recommend is October, if we get it done October 4th, you got time?
Or,
If we hold our public hearing, our workshop October 4th,
I'm prepared at any time before the workshop.
Okay.
no, my question is, does that give you enough time to meet your deadline?
No,
Not to make the November.
not for
ballot.
November. Because of absentee ballots, they need to be prepped.
Public hearing must be held at least 10 days prior, so Tuesday, August 24th.
Okay, so if we workshop on the 20th, we should have it, isn't it?
on
Come in at
August-
5 o'clock on the 20th, we could get a lot done. And everybody would have an opportunity to be here. Just a suggestion.
I'm on vacation next week.
Okay, yeah, let's not interfere with your vacation. Mark?
So that outline that was on Tracy's letter about whether you gonna have a special meeting in March, or you're gonna deal with it in June or something like that. That's what you're trying to wait for the whole board to have to discuss, so that you can
Yes,
get
yeah,
consensus on that.
that's right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we need the full board to weigh in on anything regarding a town meeting.
We can try it on the 7th. I'm just thinking that we've got one person here who may have family issues that could get in the way. I want to give them all, I would suggest we give everybody an opportunity to get a good look at this.
Yeah, exactly. So just to backtrack a little bit, Steve, are you suggesting a workshop with Bailey on
Before the meeting.
September,
So either the
20th.
7th or the 20th.
Yeah.
We'll do it before the meeting,
probably?
ask all our questions, and then it could be an agenda item after, and hopefully we can put it to bed. My thoughts. Good for you?
I don't know if we can meet the November town meeting then.
Yeah,
No, it won't.
we won't.
So, Madam Chair, if I could, Bailey, while you're with us, I know your goal is to have this, in a perfect world, it would be ready to go January 1st. What would happen if it were ready to go to take effect July 1st?
I know that the planning board is highly opposed to it waiting until June. I can say that for sure.
Mhm.
Planning board really wanted it for this June and timing just didn't work. I think we might be able to skate by with a March and have it enacted for April 1st or something like that. I really want to get it before the building season kicks into gear next year. And the planning board agrees.
It's just a matter of whether, I mean, Steve, yeah, there's a lot to this, and whether it's appropriate for all to be voted on in one vote, all or nothing for chapter 38.
And this, to me, there's some things that I've got. I'll do it
Yeah.
tonight, but I've got some highlights that I think will spawn other questions as a result of the questions that I might ask. You follow me?
So I mean, we appreciate your stance in the planning boards. We represent the voters
Yeah.
and the fairness of making sure information is available to them in a timely manner. So we'll have a discussion. Go
There's
ahead.
another way to do this thing. We could appoint a member of the board to work with Bailey and the planning board, and all the selectmen funnel their questions to that person. We go and meet, we get it done, come back and knock this thing out of the park. I mean, there's a couple ways, because I just know that Ethan, I just know all of you are gonna have some questions once you
Yeah.
dig into it.
Well, I think, yeah, that's a good point. But, you know, your questions, your comments may, you know, may generate
Exactly.
other, you know, other questions or concerns from the board. And so perhaps, so your suggestion with a workshop with Bailey, September 20th at 5 would be a good first step.
I would encourage the planning board chair to be there as well too, but that's strictly up to how you want to handle it, really. I mean, that's,
Yeah,
I
it's,
will leave that up to the planning board chair, because planning board has kind of.
They've
has
done
been
their
done
thing.
with this
Yeah.
for a little while now.
well, in all due respect to them, we're not, and they may be able to help you answer things. So,
Right,
you know,
absolutely.
yeah.
There are definitely aspects to this that were done before I took
Yep.
over the project.
okay.
Right.
And I just had, I'll give you a for instance, I just had, you know, a member of the public who, you know, who, I mean, there is something in here that was drafted by Tom that didn't meet their, you know, needs or expectations as far as a, you know, a sign matter was concerned. And I'm like, well, you need to go to Bailey, and, you know, so I just gave them kind of the roadmap as to how to, you know, where to go as far as getting any corrections or updates to that component of chapter 38. So there's a lot of moving parts to this. So September 20th, 5 p.m. Shelley.
And we want to make sure, because it's so detailed and has so many different things, that the public feels that they were notified about everything. I don't think one workshop is gonna cover all of this at all. I don't know if we do the sections to specify everything. And then clear that up and then move on to the next thing, just to see, because once we talk about it, then everybody in town starts talking about it. And then they generate more questions. So then we just allow more time to be able to go back and see that. I understand they've been working on this for a long time, but like Steve said, we just started, and we can't make it look like we're trying to put something onto the public without proper
Transparency.
workshops needed. I think the park, how many workshops, public workshops? do we
The
have
park
for that?
was endless, the town, oh my.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
I got a
Because this
town
will
park.
affect a lot of people and a lot of builders and.
I will say, the changes seem significant.
Yeah.
They're not as significant as they seem. A lot of things were moved around, and shoreline zoning was brought to match state requirements. That's the most major changes.
What I think is gonna happen, Bailey, is you're gonna do more explaining than that, and then you're gonna see changes suggested from us. So that there's a clear understanding of what some things mean.
Absolutely.
And once you do that, I'm sure some of my questions will all be answered, because I'll understand it better.
Right.
But I got a feeling there's a few things in there that will, you know, cause some discussion.
All right, there is no executive session. There's no labor negotiations update per our town manager. So
I move to adjourn.
Steve's motion, Shelley seconds, all those in favor. All right, we're done. Thank you, everybody.